take your time at the location and not just consume a place, take a couple of snapshots and then move on to the next spectacular place. It's nice for tourists, but not for photographers.
Hi, welcome to Pixels, where we explore the heart and art of photography. I'm Beth Buelow, your host, and I am so glad that you've decided to join me. Pixels is a project of the Nature Photography Collective, where we provide virtual and in-person experiences to help nature photographers more confidently and consistently express themselves. You can learn more at naturephotocollective.com. I'm really pleased to welcome Theo Bosboom to the Pixels podcast. Theo is a passionate professional photographer from the Netherlands, specializing in nature and landscapes. He is widely regarded as a creative photographer with a strong eye for detail and composition, and always trying to find fresh perspectives. Theo's photographs are regularly published in renowned magazines such as the Dutch edition of National Geographic, Geo, OnLandscape and Elements. Theo has won various awards in international photography competitions, such as the Wildlife Photographer of the Year and European Wildlife Photographer of the Year, and he's a frequent speaker at international photography festivals. Theo has published 4 photo books, including Back to Iceland in 2022. Theo and I would love to know what you think of this conversation. Please let us know in the comments what stood out for you or what was meaningful. Your likes and shares are always welcome, and please be sure to subscribe and enable your notifications so that you are always notified of upcoming episodes. Now, on to the conversation. Hi, Theo. I'm so delighted to be talking with you. I should note for folks that are watching this, we have how many hours difference between, maybe a 6-hour time difference between us. So I'm so glad we were able to make it work.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored, and it's a real pleasure to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm curious about what is giving you energy these days.
Well, at the moment, it might be a bit of a strange answer, but I was very happy that yesterday I could do a walk of 3,000 steps. And for outdoor photographers and outdoor people, this might seem like a really small amount, but because I just had a hip replacement and I did these steps with crutches, I was really pleased because I could walk around in the neighborhood, heard the birds singing, and get a grip of nature. So it was really cool, and I was really happy about that. Looking forward to be out again.
Yeah, congratulations, because that's a big milestone in that journey. As we were talking about before, I am part of the hip replacement club myself, and I remember for me, one of the gifts of that experience was that it forced me to slow down, especially when I was outside. I'm wondering what you notice about how it's affecting how you show up.
Yeah, slowing down also in the house and in my life in general and in my work, which is good for me, I think, because I tend to rush always, and now I have to take a rest, stare out of the window, do nothing. I think it's kind of refreshing, actually, and this also gives energy because I'm really also looking forward, of course, to be really out again and take my camera up again. So it's a forced break, but it's not so bad as I thought it would be. So there are some benefits as well, and of course that I'm walking around pain-free in the near future. So a lovely foresight.
Yeah, it's such a gift, and thank goodness for the miracles of modern medicine that make this possible. It's really amazing when you think about it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
How do we keep in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of uncertainty? Sometimes even, photography or art and creating can seem like it's sort of a fruitless exercise. Like it makes us feel better, but we know sort of maybe on an intellectual level, there's an intersection between the creative person and society and what's happening. I'm just curious how people might be seeing that intersection in light of what's going on in the world?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and what I noticed in my country and also in neighboring countries, people that I speak to regularly, for instance, in Germany or in the UK, is that last months, especially, people were kind of I say it lame. I don't know if it's the right English word, but
Mm,
exhausted,
yeah,
not reacting anymore, feeling depressed about everything that was going on. And I think it's very understandable. I have these moments myself too, absolutely. But I also think it's important to keep up, yeah,
yeah,
talking, to keep expressing your views. Also, if you don't agree to something, to keep on saying it, even if it feels pointless. And I think our photography or art can be used for this. For instance, I saw this initiative of Eric Bennett and a couple of
hmm,
other American photographers to sell prints for the national park wardens that were fired in recent weeks.
yes,
And I thought, well, that's a very simple but great idea, which is very helpful, probably. And I
yeah,
think it gives you back the feeling that you can make a difference, and that is important. If you lose this feeling, if we lose this feeling, then yeah, you could say there is no hope or so, and then you just have to wait
yeah,
till the storm is over. If you can make a difference, even if it's on a very small scale, uh,
hmm,
yeah, I think then you have the feeling of control in your life a little bit back, and the feeling that you can make, yeah, a difference. So
yeah.
I thought it was a great initiative. And, uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up because I now remember seeing Sarah Marino post about that
yeah,
and
she was
thinking,
also
what a
into
wonderful way to honor and truly have a reciprocal relationship with the
absolutely.
resources that are so important to us as
Yes,
photographers.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Thank you
wonderful.
for mentioning that. And the other aspect that's in, we've already touched on it a bit, that's interesting is your making that priority to, like you said, you've been happy to play in the Europe sandbox. And I think if I was over there, I probably would be too. I don't know if I would feel the need to go anywhere else because there's so much there. But in what ways has that choice informed or contributed to your artistic vision?
I think actually it has been very important, but maybe it's good to go back to the start of my photography career. I think then
Hmm.
it was not a very very outspoken choice. It just happened these days that I think it's probably logical that you start in your own area. Of course, you
Hmm.
can go on a holiday and go to a nice exotic location, but usually it's not enough for a eager photographer. So you start moving around in your own area and try to discover it. And well, the Netherlands is a very nice country with a lot of benefits, but we're also one of the most densely populated countries in the world, and real wilderness areas are scarce or non-existent. We have, I always say, little stamps, very small areas of nature left in between the human presence.
Mhm,
And in the Netherlands, it's very hard, for instance, to make a wide landscape image without any human elements in it. There's always
mm,
the church tower or a factory wall or something else, a windmill that is, if you say, you could say disturbing the view depending on where you stand. But if you want to photograph purely nature, like I at least started and still prefer to do, then
mhm,
it's very hard. And I think this caused me to look for details much more from the very start of my career.
mhm,
So I think I'm doing intimate landscape without knowing it consciously from maybe 2004 or 5 onwards. Whereas I think for most landscape photographers, it's a step they took later in their career or in their in their photography life, because many people start with the grand vistas because they're more spectacular, and
Yeah.
also you tend to think, at least I did, that it's how you should
Hmm.
photograph landscapes. But for me, it was the other way around from the start, just because, I could easily isolate things that were pure nature without any disturbance, and well, try to make the most out of it. And I discovered it was a very interesting way to see the world, which also allowed me to make my work more personal than it would have been if I would go for the wider landscapes, probably, because you have
Yeah.
so much more choices. Sometimes you have to work harder. You have to see more precise or more creatively to make something out of it. So I
Hmm.
think it helped to develop my eye a lot. And I noticed this when I was for the first time on Iceland, because I was so overwhelmed by the greatness of the landscapes there that I only could take press the button with open mouth just of what I saw. And after a week or so, I thought, I'm taking very different pictures than at home. Maybe I should, try to go back to my own style of looking and photographing, because I'm taking images that everyone is taking here, just because
Hmm.
it feels enough. The landscape is so great that it feels, sufficient to just record it and take it home. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a different way of photography, I think.
Yeah.
So after a week, I started, looking differently and applying the techniques and working methods that I apply at home, and then it all went well.
Yeah.
It was a confirmation for me that things are different if you grow up as a photographer in a country without spectacular nature, and that it influences you a lot in your way of seeing and approaching photography.
It seems like that's not something we hear a lot about, is, sort of the environmental influences that someone had either before they picked up a camera or as they were doing so,
Yeah,
and how that influences their vision and their seeing.
yeah, it's interesting. And I made a first book about Iceland so many years ago, and then one of the famous Icelandic photographers, Daniel Bergman, saw it. I sent it to him because we met a couple of times, and he said he was flabbergasted because he had
Hmm.
never seen his country through these kind of eyes, with this
Mm,
views. And he said, I always go for the spectacular because it's what's appealing about Iceland, but this is a different kind of photography. So
yeah.
he said it inspired him, and that was nice, of course. But
Yeah.
it feels logic that if you grow up in a spectacular country like the US is too, of course, that you satisfy yourself completely with just trying to record it in the best possible way with the nice light and the nice conditions, and that you
Hmm.
don't need to do anything else.
Your story makes me, the word that came up for me was limitations, like the power of limitations. And I think that word can get a bad rap because it makes it sound like, lack of something.
Yeah.
But as you were talking about it, it's more about working with what you have and making the most of
Yes.
that.
Yeah, and I think also photography for me is also a way of expressing myself in ways that words can maybe not fully describe.
Hmm.
It's an intuitive process, and I think, if you approach photography like that, it doesn't matter too much where you are, because you will always find a way of expressing yourself, and find a
Yeah.
topic that can help you with that.
So what guidance would you have for someone who either by choice or by uh, necessity has to stay close to home, but they don't live in a place that has a lot of sort of photographic interest, at least not obvious photographic interest.
Yeah, maybe one good mental step is not seeing it as a limitation or punishment, but as a chance, uh,
Hmm.
as a maybe a blessing in disguise, because it might be easier to make your work personal
Mm-hmm.
and original, because of course these days many people go to the same places to take the same kind of photographs,
Yeah.
and if you are limited to your own area, which is less spectacular, there will probably won't be many other photographers bothering you with that. So you, you can explore it and make the best out of it, and be the only one. So you will have fresh and original work not seen before. And
Yeah.
I think it also makes it maybe extra nice if you discover nice spots, or are able to take interesting photographs and say, okay, this was not only the great place I went to, it was also me that's in the
Mm-hmm.
picture. Because
Yeah.
you have to work a little bit harder, and then maybe the reward is also bigger.
Yeah. I love that shift in mindset because it can go from like, oh, woe is me. I I live in this boring, area or something to, wow,
Yeah,
okay, there's an opportunity to create images that no one else has created, and therefore, to show my uniqueness in my
yeah,
vision.
and I think it worked that way, at least temporarily, for many photographers during COVID, because they were
Yes.
uh, bound to their homes and their own areas all of a sudden, and all trips were cancelled, and they had
Yeah.
to. And I think a lot of people made the most out of it, and actually enjoyed it, and
Yeah.
felt it was an enrichment instead of only also maybe a little bit of a punishment, but
Yeah. But
yeah,
only if we choose to think of it that way, I suppose.
yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Because I think we can get wrapped up, especially as nature photographers or landscape photographers, thinking that we have to travel, we have to go to those places that have obviously epic conditions or geography. And
yeah,
there's it's powerful to remember that you can just step outside your door,
yeah, yes, it
accept the
is.
challenge of that.
Yeah, the challenge, and I think it, of course, has also environmental benefits. I mean,
Yes.
I think many of us have a warm heart for nature and want to fight for
Hmm.
it. But yeah, if we're traveling all over the world all the time, then our impact is maybe more negative than we tend to think.
Yeah.
And I think if you choose, even if it's only for maybe half of your trips or part of your trips, more often for your own areas where you can go to by car, or in case of me, because I'm Dutch, by bicycle even.
Hmm.
Um, you can help the environment too, to reduce your CO2 emissions,
Yeah.
and still take wonderful photographs. So it's an extra benefit, which is also important for me.
It seems like that goes back to what we were talking about with the photographers raising money through selling prints to support the National Park Service.
Yeah,
Um, it's a way of living your values as a person through your art.
yeah,
Um,
I think so too. Yes, yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that, and it's making me think about what choices I can make. And I'm curious for anybody who's listening to this or watching this. What choices have you made that have helped you to align with what's important to you personally,
yeah.
and
It's good to ask yourself that question every now and then.
just kind of check in. um, Before we move to some pivot pixels that represent different points in your journey, I'd love to hear just a little bit about your pre-photography journey, because you were a lawyer. You left behind what would be a more traditional career, and I'm
Yes.
curious about what I sort of want to know what you know now that you wish you'd known then about making that kind of shift.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't feel there are big things that I could mention right now. From, oh, if I had known then I would I would have done it completely different. Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I knew, if I had the knowledge from now, I would probably say to myself that I should jump on trains sometimes a little bit earlier, like social media, for instance. I was very late with starting with Instagram, and that makes it much more difficult to get an interesting number of followers and to make something out of it, also business wise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a bit stupid because people told me for years you should go there, you should do that. It can be very beneficial for enlarging your audience and selling books and whatever commercial purposes. So even if you don't like to be on it too much, like me, I see it mainly as a necessity. Although I like following interesting other photographers or accounts, but yeah, I try to reduce my time on things like that. But yeah, still, if I would have started earlier with things like that, then some things might have gone a bit easier. But they're not real big things. I think I was lucky that the big change in photography had already taken place, the change from analog to digital. So I knew that selling images wasn't paying my mortgage anymore. That there should be other ways that I should try as a professional photographer, because I know the older generation that have lived in the golden age of nature photography, like Frans Lanting once told me a story that he went to Antarctica and photographed the emperor penguins, and then he earned about 1 million Dutch gulden, which is about $500,000 a year, only with stock photography of this series of images of penguins. And I think nowadays you're happy if the costs of your trip are covered, and if you can do something with it. So these times have changed dramatically, of course, but I knew when I was taking the jump. So I knew I should find other ways to make enough money to live from.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Any advice that you might have for somebody who's listening to this and thinking about that kind of leap into full-time photography?
Yeah, it's funny. I had a discussion with my sister yesterday. She's also considering a jump into another profession. It's not photography, but it's recovering old furniture. So also more creative craftsmanship. And my main advice was just go for it, because I heard so many hesitations, and there are always so many reasons not to do it. And then I asked her, okay, suppose it doesn't work. What will happen then? Is it the end of the world? Is it the end of your career? Will you never find another job again? She said, no, probably not. The economy is going well here at the moment. So there's a shortage of all kind of jobs. People, coming from all kind of countries to our country to fill these gaps. So probably if you do it for 2-3 years and it doesn't work, and you apply for a job, you'll have it in a couple of days. Things look always worse. The risks look always bigger when you try to start something like that. And I think if you follow your heart and you really want it, then you have so much energy to make it a success that you probably will. So that would be my main advice. Don't let all the possible risk hold you down. Of course, you should use your head also a little bit, and maybe make some calculations, have some sort of business plan. This is not something where I'm particularly good in, but it helps a little bit to assess or to evaluate if you're on the right track, and maybe also for talks with your partner or other persons that are involved. I have 2 daughters, and of course I am responsible too, that they can go to their sports and follow education. So I'm not living only for myself, but if you have some targets maybe, or plans that you can evaluate, and you can discuss about it. Are we on the right track or not? The worst thing that can happen is that you doesn't succeed, but it's much better that you have tried than when you don't. I think I was very afraid that if I wouldn't take the jump, that I would give a talk when I was retiring as a lawyer, and think, oh, that was a nice career, but that in the back of my mind, I would be thinking all the time, what if I would have gone for it? And I'm still really happy that I took the jump and I tried it, and so far so good. It's working
Yes.
for me, and I enjoy every day of it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's inspiring, because you're reminding me of an exercise that sometimes we coaches do, which is, imagine your retirement party. What do you want to be celebrating? What do you want other people to be saying about you? How do you want to be known? That can force those reflection questions to say, if I keep on this same path, is this really what I want people to be saying? And if it is, great. If it's not, then there's something to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In the end, you want to be proud of yourself, I think, and also the choices you made. And usually the steps that you don't take are the ones that you're regretting later.
Yeah. And you mentioned that question, what if, and that's such an important one. And we can tend to go down the what if disaster path instead of the what if I'm happy. What if I'm excited about my work? What if I get to do these cool things?
Yes.
Yeah, true. We have to ask both.
Hey there, this is Nick Stover, the founder of Nature Photography Collective, inviting you to join the collective itself. We have a library of over 100 nature speakers, an incredibly active community where you can interact with other photographers from around the world, and we add new talks, new speakers almost every week. Plus, you can be part of live Q&As, online editing clinics, and be notified before anyone else of new in-field workshops. You can get full details on our website, www.naturephotocollective.com, and you can use code SOCIALS10 to save 10% off your membership. Hope to see you there. Thanks so much.
Well, let's take a look at some of the images now. This is so intriguing to me that I am dying to hear the story. So tell us a little bit about this and what it represents for you as a creative.
Well, this is an image from my series that I later called "The Journey of the Autumn Leaves." It was taken at a small Belgian mountain stream. Which is situated in a lovely forest with beautiful beech trees and oak trees, and especially in autumn, it's absolutely smashing. And I went there for a couple of autumns in a row. I was still working there as a lawyer, so I had only a couple of days each year to go there. And after maybe 3 or 4 visits, I noticed that I had the feeling I have photographed everything in this area that I can think of. And that was kind of upsetting me, because I always tended to think, there's so many options, you never run out of them. There's always a new angle. And then, I sort of triggered myself to think more out of the box, to think better, to think harder. What can I do? What can I add here to what I've already done? And then I suddenly thought of, all these leaves, they fall into the water, they are taken by the stream, they end up in small waterfalls, and get stuck behind the rocks. And how would it be to see autumn from underwater? Maybe like a fish or a frog would see it on the bottom of the river. And then first I informed about the price of an underwater housing for my DSLR. And well, I was shocked. It was more expensive than my camera and lens together. So but then I found another solution, just a small point and shoot camera with a very small underwater housing of $200. And I just started experimenting. I stepped into the river with my boots, put the camera under the water, pointed it up to the sky, and just took a lot of pictures without seeing what I was doing, because obviously you can't see through the viewfinder then. But that's the great thing about digital. You can check every now and then if it makes sense what you're doing. And I really took hundreds of really shittish images, real crap, horrible. But on this first session of an hour or so, there were 1 or 2 images that were actually really nice and showed autumn in a really new, fresh way. And then I thought,
Yeah.
okay, this is so promising that I might need to buy this underwater housing and make it a proper project.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did, and I also bought a wetsuit and some other things that I could use, and I just started to go for it. And after that, I noticed that the images were noticed. They got awarded at quite big photo contests within Europe. They got published in many places. And so what it learned to me was, that it could be very beneficial to just experiment and see where it takes you. And also that it's a lot of joy to try. I had so
Mm-hmm.
much fun doing it, even on the bad days where I ended up with horrible images. I learned
Mm-hmm.
something. I was out there, I was trying, and I was feeling, okay, this is something new, this is something original. And of course, it's not easy because it's always hard to try something new.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started to use Flash for the first time in my life, and it was also horrible because I couldn't find the right balance between the natural light and the flashlight. It
Mm-hmm.
looks just really awful. So I stopped with it too. And this is an image with natural light. What you
Mm-hmm.
see is a pile of leaves that is stuck behind a rock and some branches. And it's just before a small waterfall. So you see the water going over it. It
Yep.
has, I put the camera on the bottom of the river and I used a slow shutter time of, I think, a quarter of a second or so. So you
Mm-hmm.
see the movement in the water a little bit. And so
Yeah.
actually what you see on top of the frame is the bottom side of the water, the underside, as seen from
Oh,
the
okay.
water.
Wow.
And you see a little
Yeah.
bit of the reflections in the water surface
Yes.
from the leaves.
Yes. Oh, so that's what I'm seeing. Okay. Okay. So what I so many things I love about this, that and especially knowing that it came from experimentation and play and
Yes.
taking some risks with life and limb and camera. um, and that it so I go back to something Alistair Ben shared when he and I chatted. He said, if you are surprised, you're engaged. And this
Yeah.
is a surprising image. And so therefore it engages me, it engages the viewer and
Yeah.
piques curiosity, which to me increases its power and
Yeah.
effectiveness.
Well, I'm very happy with this quote because I fully agree with that. And I think especially in these times where we have such a huge image overload and we see
Mm-hmm.
so much of the same stuff over and over again, that the element of surprise
Mm.
is getting more important every year.
Yeah.
I've also
Yeah.
been a judge at quite big photo contests like Wildlife Photographer of the Year, where you have 50,000 images to go
Hmm.
through. And most of them are wonderful, are great, and are perfect. But there are actually quite few that stop you in your tracks and say, "Oh, what is this?" And that one
Mm-hmm.
should make a bit a longer view and try to figure out what it is. So for me, it's one of the key elements of my photography, trying to surprise, to bring fresh work, to not to repeat others and not to repeat myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this project was probably the first project where I saw that it could work, and also that it fits very well to me because I love doing this kind of things. Also, if it doesn't work, which obviously is also the case every now and then, but the
Mm-hmm.
process is so rewarding, and trying is so rewarding, and every now and then you have success, and then exactly you are able to surprise your viewers and to engage them and to show them something really new, a world that they have never seen before, even if it's a place where many photographers go each year and where thousands of people have a walk in autumn every day, because it's
Mm-hmm.
one of the most popular regions in Belgium. And that's very rewarding for me as a photographer.
Yeah. before we move on to the next image, I want to I want to ground another aspect of your story that I find valuable, and that's your statement about, I have been to this location so many times that I felt like I have photographed everything there is to photograph here. And instead of saying, okay, next, and moving on, you
Yeah.
persisted in looking for something unexpected, surprising.
Yes.
Um, that
I've, I've,
feels important.
Yeah, that's important. And it reminds me of a story of a photo workshop that I did on Iceland once in the West Fjords, where we arrived at a beach, one of my favorite beaches there, with a lot of options for intimate landscapes, very dynamic, totally different every time that I come there.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we take 3.5 hours here for this beach. And this lady was looking, and I saw her face go into notice and say,
Sort of
three and a half
panic.
hours? Is 1 hour not enough? And
Mm-hmm.
I said, no,
Mm-hmm.
that's absolutely not enough. And the funny thing was that after 3.5 hours, I had to drag her from the beach because she
I
was
love it.
totally in and she loved it. And she saw so many things and she had so many ideas. So she totally turned around. And I was begging the next day to go back to this same beach. So it was actually very funny and also a confirmation that it always helps to take your time at a location and not just consume a place, take a couple of snapshots and then move on to the
Yes.
next spectacular place. It's nice for tourists but not for photographers. I think you need
Right.
to take your time.
Yeah. I love that reminder that we're not there to consume the place. Um, there's there's
Yeah,
a
you,
deeper relationship that's being
yeah,
that's an
try to
opportunity.
try to feel it, try to
Yeah.
experience it, try to grab its character, and you can't do that in 20 minutes or 1 hour.
Right. Right.
Probably need
Yeah.
more visits anyway. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, let's yeah, moving on to this one. Just such a dynamic and another intriguing image, even though I know a little bit more of what I'm looking at. But tell us about what we're seeing here.
Yes, this was an interesting experience for me. This was the first outbreak of many after in Iceland in the Reykjanes Peninsula, the Fakra del Fjall. Probably still pronounce it wrongly after all those visits to Iceland. But sorry for that. Um, it was during COVID, and I was
Hmm.
very lucky that I could enter the country because I have had COVID during the previous months. So I had a certificate which made it possible to enter the country. It was before the vaccinations.
Hmm.
And I was really happy to be close to the volcano. It's something that I had one before, the Eyjafjallajökull in 2010, but that was totally different. And I was really excited to go to this one because you could get so close.
Yeah.
And of course, I had in mind that there would be some other people, but yeah, it was really, it was like a circus. There were, or like a pop festival. There were
Mm.
thousands and thousands and thousands of people visiting this volcano, and they were playing music, they were playing volleyball, they were grilling marshmallows in the lava. It was just I had to get used to it because it was so different than how I normally experience nature, which is
Yeah.
preferably in silence with my partner or alone or with a couple of like-minded people, but not with thousands of people making
Thousands.
lots of noise.
Ooh.
Um,
Yeah.
and I was there for the whole week, and I was taking images with my drone and close-ups with my telezoom, and trying to keep the people out of the frame all the time. And then I thought, yeah, actually, this is also a bit strange. Now when I'm back, I'm showing pictures of a volcano, and it just seems like I was the only one there, and it felt a bit like cheating or so. And
Hmm.
of course, photographers cheat all the time with all kind of things. It's probably part of photography that you make all kind of choices and that you leave things out, and some things you want to include in the story and some not. But this was a huge thing to leave out. And then on the first night, when darkness came, I saw that everyone turned on their headlights. And also after maybe 10-15 minutes or so, when they experienced the lava, and because you can see it better at night, people kind of had enough and started moving back to the parking place, which was a hike of about an hour or so.
Okay.
And then I thought, this looks actually nice with these headlights, the people. And then I started taking photographs. And at first I took them with a short shutter time, which were actually nice. But then somehow I got the idea that I should try long exposure times. And then I took 3-4 nights in a row just to work on an image like this, with perfecting all elements, finding the perfect composition. I found a nice hill with an overview on the trail, and I waited for the best time in the evening, where the biggest amount of people were moving. And then I used a shutter time of 2 minutes to take this image, and all the light lines you see are people walking, so that's also why they're a bit zigzagging. And well, when I took this image, I was really happy, because it was the first time that I took an image of people, sort of, that I would hang on my own wall. Normally, I don't like to include people in my image. And I had the feeling that it was good, because I had a pleasing, elegant, also, I think, original image that was still telling the story of this eruption, namely that lots of people were going there. So it all came together for me, and this was it was also interesting, because people and lava take the same way, the same route, namely the fastest one down, the most smooth. And this was confirmed later, because this valley was totally overflown with lava maybe 1 or 2 months later.
Wow.
So that made the story complete for me.
Yes.
Made this image also special.
Yeah. So many layers there, and particularly that last part about sort of nature prevailing over humanity in a way, because it covered what used to be occupied by people.
But also maybe confirming to me that we are part of nature, and maybe behaving like nature too. And what also made this satisfactory for me was that people in Iceland are very proud on their volcanoes. So actually, it's a great thing that they go there by thousands, and that young and old. I saw children of 6. I saw people of 80. I saw even handicapped people doing this rather strenuous walk to enjoy their volcano. It's really interesting. So that was also an aspect that made me try to include them in my images and not leave them out, because they belong there too. And Icelanders are really strongly proud on their volcanoes. And in the time of the economical crisis, the Eyjafjallajökull eruption was there with the huge ash cloud, which disrupted the air flight for about a month or so. And there was a T-shirt that was a real bestseller on Iceland, and that said, "We ain't got cash, but we got ash." And people are wearing this with pride all in the streets, and I thought that was very remarkable. And it tells the story about Icelandic people very well, I think.
Yes. Well, I'm thinking of I've watched at least one television series that was based in Iceland, and it evolved around the volcano in the nearby. So now that makes more sense to me as well. Takes on new meaning. Yeah, and so again, this is I'm appreciating that element of surprise, because I didn't. Now that you say that about those being the lights of people, like when the first thing that occurred to me was like it's like lightning on the ground, um,
Yeah,
which was sort of close but not quite. But the way it's incorporated just adds that bit of mystery. But then when you tell the story, it deepens it. And it doesn't take away from the mystery, though. There's still that element of wonder that
yeah.
comes from looking at it.
Thank you. That's nice to hear.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at this third one. And I'm going to make no assumptions at all because I'm continuing to be surprised. So tell us about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, but I think this image is important to me because I had been struggling a couple of years ago with the question of meaning in my work, about storytelling. Also, obviously, the volcano image has a story, and some of my other work had too. But sometimes I had the feeling I just take images of beautiful things in nature, which is
Mm-hmm.
nice and very rewarding. But I sometimes had the feeling that I could and should do more with my photography. And then suddenly this opportunity arose when there were huge floodings in the Netherlands and Germany and Belgium a couple of summers ago. Large rivers over flooded, and actually in Germany and Belgium there were quite a lot of casualties, and
Mm-hmm.
villages were hit quite hard, also in the south of the Netherlands. And my first thought was going there and register what's going on, more like a photojournalist.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought, well, I don't have a press card, and maybe I'm in the way of people trying to help. So I'm a disturbance rather than doing something good. And then I thought, why don't I go to my own river, the Rhine, that was flowing pretty close to where I lived back then in Arnhem in the Netherlands, and see what happened there. And then I saw that it was also totally flooded. And
Mm-hmm.
this happens maybe once a year on average, but always in winter, normally when the rivers are filled much more with rain and other stuff. It had never happened before in summer. And of course, the big difference is that in summer, everything is blowing and growing. It's full of flowers, wildflowers. There are lots of insects. So I thought, this is interesting. Let's just focus on this and photograph this as good as possible. And I first tried just with my ordinary gear from above the water. But yeah, I had the feeling that I was missing something, that the core of what was happening was underwater and not above the water. And well, because I was the happy owner of an underwater housing from a previous project,
Yeah.
I brought it the next day and started shooting again in the same way, just from the hip, without seeing what I'm doing. Just walked through the area very carefully, and everywhere I saw a bunch of flowers, I just put my camera below the water surface and tried to find interesting angles to photograph it
Mm-hmm.
uh, from below. And yeah, maybe just like with the autumn series, it creates a sense of mystery. It's a strange
Oh.
world, but there's one difference. Here you can relate it, yeah, very clearly to, for instance, climate change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've named the series "Uncomfortable Beauty." I find it.
Mm.
I thought it was wonderful to look at every now and then. It was such a bizarre, strangely beautiful landscape, but on the other hand,
Oh.
it didn't feel right because it's not supposed to be flooded in the middle of summer. It's because we have huge problems. And then I thought, okay, I can use it like this also, this series to make people aware that it's beautiful and
Mm-hmm.
it's uncommon, but it's not like it should be. So there's a sort of tension in the images and in the series that I thought was important. well, I've had the feeling that it broadened my horizon too, and that sometimes you have an opportunity to use, maybe creative, arty images in a way that can still tell a story and can point something out to the public.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
inspiring for me, and it's not easy to repeat. I also must admit, but it's good that there are always options, and it's good to be aware of it. That you can look at nature in this way too.
Yeah. 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 It's definitely a perspective that none of us really have seen. Um, and and like you said, like you can't repeat it, but I also heard you, talking about how it's you don't want to repeat yourself,
Yeah.
that you're always looking for that different perspective. And even while this uses the technique that we learned about with the autumn picture, it's a completely different um, different energy and different story, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
now that
very
I'm looking at
cool.
it, it's like I figured those light rays were coming maybe through water, but now I see little bubbles, um,
Yeah.
that adds to it.
Yeah. You can see the blue sky.
Hmm.
The sun is just above the chamomile on top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And I also, sorry, I
no, go
also
ahead.
notice with a series like this, and also the previous one with the autumn leaves, that there are also quite a lot of people who don't like it or who
Mm,
have to get used on it because it's
mm-hmm,
something different. And at first, that put me off.
mm,
Yeah, I want to make everybody happy and feel good about the images, but I also realized not much later than that it's impossible to please everyone unless yeah, you're always on the really safe side, on the middle of the roadside,
right.
and that's not what you
Right.
should strive for as an artist. So I've learned to embrace that. Some people rub their shoulders and say, "Okay, this doesn't do anything for me. I can't see what it is." Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, that's a sign that you have found or are well on your way to finding your own vision and voice. If it's something that the people who love it, and the people who don't just don't. They might even hate it, but
Yes.
it shows that you're putting a stake in the ground. You're making a
Exactly.
statement.
Yes. I've learned that, and I think it's also one of the things that I try to learn to participants of workshops or people that I do coaching with. Try to rely on your own vision, even
Hmm.
when people don't like it, and of course,
Hmm.
I think every artist, every photographer needs a little bit of success every now and then, a little bit of
Definitely.
praise, how
Hmm.
tiny it might be. But
Hmm.
also, please keep believing in yourself. If it feels good for you, it's probably a sign that it is good for you, and
Yeah.
it will find its way to. I think
Yes.
there's always an
Yeah.
audience, and it
Yes.
makes you more interesting as an artist. I think more distinguished, more personal.
Yeah. Yeah. And it keeps that element of surprise, like you were saying, that when you're judging a competition and you see 50,000 images of the desert, which,
Yes.
you're looking for the surprise.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, this image seems like a good segue to hear a little bit about your flowerscapes project. And I'm wondering
Yes.
if you could tell us about that.
Yeah, it's my newest book project, and I'm really excited about it. You could say it moves on from the underwater flowers because it has the same perspective from below,
Hmm. Hmm.
but this time it's above the water, and it just shows flowers in their natural habitats, but from the bug's eye perspective. So I question myself, what would an ant see if it was walking through a field of flowers, or what would a ladybug see when it's sitting on the stem of a flower and it's looking up?
Mm.
And there's a special lens. It's called the Periprobe of Laowa. It's like a real
Mm.
long stick, and you can twist it
Yeah.
360 degrees. And I when it came out, I thought, this could be interesting for flowers, for instance, or bugs, because you can stick it in between. You can put it on the ground, and it has a minimum focus distance of 1 centimeter, so you can
Oh, wow.
really close to the flowers and make it appear really big in the frame.
Mm-hmm.
And then still, for instance, if a flower is glowing in the forest, you see the trees above it. And this makes it very surprising too, and unusual, because obviously flowers are a very popular subject to photograph, but it's also almost always macro with a blurred background,
Mm-hmm.
portraits, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
see the environment normally. And
Yeah.
I think that the pictures tell a little story about these flowers.
Yeah.
And what I also like is that the main part, I included about 45 species, I think, in the book. Three-quarters of them are very, very common flowers that you see every day, like daisies, dandelions, poppies. And they look so different from this
Mm.
perspective. So it's
Yeah.
it made me really happy to work on. I was not so much into flowers previously, but now I'm a big flower fan.
I love it. Well,
Yes.
you're describing that reminds me of like my point of entry into photography was flowers, which it is for like a lot of nature photographers because they're so
Yeah.
beautiful and an obvious subject. And I
Yeah.
remember the first time I I was in love with dahlias. You know, they're
Mhm.
so extravagant. There's so much variety. And I was walking along a row and I noticed the back of the dahlia was just as beautiful of this particular one. And so I started taking photos of that. You're taking this like I remember my excitement at noticing that. I can't imagine what you were feeling as you were
Yeah.
going into that perspective that nobody really, or very few have probably seen.
Yes. What I really liked for myself is that almost every time that I used the lens, I saw something new. And
Hmm.
how great is that if you in your own country, at places where you've
Yeah.
been 1,000 times, if every image that you're taking is totally fresh and new.
Yeah.
And that made me really, I felt like a kid going into the candy store, and I was just hoping for more wind still days, because it needs to be
Yes.
really wind still, because f14 is the minimum aperture. So, and I work with
Mm.
natural light, so
Hmm.
long
Yeah.
shutter times. But
Yep.
yeah, every time I could, I dropped all other projects I was working on, and only did this. And I
Yeah.
was afraid that the whole world was doing it, but I think I'm still one of the few
Yeah.
that does it, and that
Yeah.
makes a bit out of it. So
Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting. And
yes,
I really appreciate your point about the wind. I would sometimes could had to go out in wind, and I called it flower action photography.
yeah,
Because you just it was a whole different ballgame. And so with your F14 and yeah, those still days would be a treasure.
oh, absolutely, yes, yeah. We had too few of them, of course, always, but
Yeah.
in the end, it was enough to make a nice selection. I
Yeah.
worked
So,
2 years on it, 2 springs and two
oh
summers.
wow.
Yeah,
And so what is the how will flowerscapes manifest? A book? What's what are
yeah.
how can people see this and experience it for themselves?
Well, it will absolutely be on my website, but the
Mhm.
main product is a photo book. Indeed,
Mhm.
I'm working on it right now, and it should be ready around the end of May, early June. So
Mm,
when people
perfect.
see this or hear this, then it will probably be there.
Excellent.
And I'm working with Sandra Bartocha. She's a well-known nature photographer from Germany, but also a great book designer, very
Mm,
critical, but
mhm,
always making the best out of the images that are there, and very good to talk about the concept of the book and the choices you have to make, sometimes bold choices, killing
mhm.
darlings, etc. So it's a
Yes.
process I really enjoy. And yeah, this also energizes me a lot these days.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Congratulations on,
Thank you.
being so close to the finish line. And by the time folks are listening to this, it
Yeah,
should be able to be in somebody's hands. And that's
thanks.
amazing. So yeah,
Yeah,
congrats.
thanks. Thanks.
So as we wrap up, I like to hear from guests about resources and or advice, I suppose, that you find yourself passing along to other people, whether that's in workshops or folks you mentor, um, that you find yourself saying or recommending consistently,
Yes.
that folks
Yeah.
might want to know about.
Well, the one thing I already mentioned, keep believing in your own vision and don't
Mm-hmm.
be put off by the lack of enthusiasm of anyone else.
Yeah.
I think that's a hard one, but it's really important. Another one is sources of inspiration. I like to find my inspiration also outside of the world of nature and landscape photography. Although I have lots of photographers that I love to follow and they inspire me as well. But I also like to go to a museum of modern art and look at paintings or sculptures even, and they inspire me at least in the same amount. And also photography in other fields like sport or portrait
Mm.
or street photography. In that case, a photograph inspires you and you want to do something similar. You are not copying or repeating, you're just embracing an idea and put it into your own world and your own subjects and your own vision,
Yeah.
which is a huge benefit because if a nature image inspires me from another photographer and I would like to take something similar, then it will be very similar. And then I have
Mm-hmm.
the feeling I'm more copying or repeating than creating. Um, so looking in bordering areas, and it could also be series or movies with great photography,
Mm-hmm.
can actually help you to get fresh and nice ideas and to make your work fresh also. Also, if you uh, more in general, maybe I think it's good to try to leave the template photography behind you at a certain stage in your career, because if you read photo books on how to shoot this or how to shoot that, you get examples and you might believe that this is the world, that
Mm.
we should do it like that. And
Mm-hmm.
this list for 10 ways to photograph this or 5 ways to photograph that, they feel kind of limited to me always. And I think it's good if someone mentions 10 ways to photograph this to look for number 11 and 12 and 13.
Mm-hmm.
Or don't even bother to look at these lists and just go there and see what your own thoughts are, because they
Yeah.
point you in a certain direction. And I think this is a main reason why many people take the same type of images. They believe they should. This
Mm-hmm.
is how you are brought up and you are taught to do.
Yeah.
I see this in my country, the Netherlands. There's a series of books with a calendar. What can you shoot in March? What can you shoot in April?
Mm.
And there are 5 topics mentioned, and everybody's shooting these topics, and which are usually very nice. And well, it's perfect if you do photography for a hobby and
Mm.
a way to relax and explore the natural world. But if you have more ambitions and you're trying to create an own vision or an own style, then I would leave these books in the shelf or don't buy them or order them, and try to find out yourself. And talking about flowers, I think there are maybe 3,000 flower
Mm.
species in the Netherlands, but I think
Wow.
people only photograph maximum 10 of them or so.
Right.
Everyone likes the same flowers, and for good reasons, because they're gorgeous usually. But there's so many
Mm-hmm.
others that are also beautiful. And if you take a little bit of effort and do a little bit of research, then the world is suddenly much bigger. And when
Yeah.
people say everything has already been photographed, and uh, I tend to get aggressive because it's so untrue. I
Yeah.
mean, there has been taken billions of images of many things, and many places are photographed. Yes, that is true, but there's still so much untouched, and that's also what I always try to say to people, to open up their eyes and their horizons a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're happy about it, because sometimes it can be overwhelming and depressing if you see what's already there. There's so much, and there's so many great images already. It can feel intimidating, but it's good to know that there's still a lot of new things possible, I think.
Yeah. What you're sharing there makes me think about when folks say they're lacking inspiration or feeling stuck, and you're inviting us to, like you said, what's the 11th idea from that list? What's the 12th? To kind of push to notice where we are stuck in a rut that is kind of our own making, because
absolutely, of course,
we're not opening it up. Yeah. Well, where do you hang out and what are online, and what are some ways that if people want more of what you have to offer, how can they find you?
Well, obviously on my website, which is my name, theobosboom.nl. But it's probably indicated in the notes on the podcast. And I'm also on Instagram, and who knows what the future will bring. I hear a lot of people trying Blue Sky and other stuff, leaving Facebook. I'm still there at the moment, still in doubt, but I think Instagram will stay for me. And my website, and these are the main things. And on my websites there are my photo books, which are the things that I'm proud of. They are very well representing my work and vision, I think, especially my last two books, Shaped by the Sea and Back to Iceland, and of course the new book, Flowerscapes.
Excellent. And I'm going to add into the description, I think the deadline is after or before this podcast will air, but I noticed with the Natural Landscape Photography Awards, they share one of your pieces about photo projects and series. And I think that would be really good for folks to hear, because we didn't really get to talk a lot about that, but that's an area where I see you also differentiating and excelling and providing an example for us of how to put our pieces together as more of a body of work.
I'm a strong advocate of projects, indeed. I also coach online photographers who are doing projects and having questions, or have no clue how to start or how to finish.
Starting is one thing, finishing is another.
I recognize that myself. It can be hard. And I write frequently about projects too, also in Nature Photographers Network, the magazine Nature Vision, I think, and for OnLandscape and magazines like that. So that's also where you can find me. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you for those contributions to all of our learning.
Very much looking forward to that too. And thank you very much for the talk. Very nice and interesting.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.